Yeah, I've been working with Jeff since 2022. And again, Jeff is just so experienced and knows everything. He's like a professor of ultra running almost, he just knows everything that you need to know about, hundreds, 200s. And I credit, all my races over the last 3 years have been, impacted positively by Jeff. He's just such a great coach and such a positive guy to be around as well.
Yeah, he was the one that introduced you, told you to get on the Vespa, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that
I'd like to add that I did find out about Vespa before Jeff coached you, and Scott ignored me. And then when Jeff mentioned it, he was like, "Yes, let's give it a go." I was like, "Well, we could have done this a little bit earlier, but
Like all men, I listen to my wife intently, Peter, on a day-to-day basis, obviously. But she was right. Always knows what's best for me.
I do. Yeah.
Jeff introduced me to Vespa, Peter, and just to answer your question as well, the way that it happened was very organically. So I hadn't trained with it. I was running Moab in 2023. Was it 23? Yeah, I've run Moab 3 times. It was 2023. I always suffered with races in the first day in being a little bit nauseous, maybe puking a couple of times. And I came into the Indian Creek aid station.
It wasn't a couple of times. You would be sick for the first 60 miles non-stop.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's non-stop for the whole race, but it was it would happen
in the first
always on the first day for sure. And I came into the aid station, I was chatting to Jeff, and he's like, "Have you ever tried Vespa?" And I was like, "No, but I'm willing to give anything a go at this point." And I tried it, and immediately I was like, "Wow, I really like it." But also the positive impact it had on my running almost immediately was brilliant. I was like, "I'm hooked. This is amazing. Keep giving me more."
So Abby, what do you think? Because I remember you at that, what was that aid station out in South Tucson?
The Gabe Zimmerman aid station.
Yeah, that's where we first met. You made a really interesting comment, which is what sparked me to do this format of the thing, because you said to me, he's so much easier to crew now.
So I've been crewing Scott at a lot of the major races. So like Cocodona's on just now, we've done that, we've done all the destination trails, Badwater, and every race. We just couldn't figure out what it was. He was being sick all the time, as he said, but then that massively impacted his mood. So he'd be, "I've just wasted all these calories." And he was just so negative coming into the aid station. But when you're crewing and it's nighttime, you're also tired, right? You're also sleep deprived and you're trying to be positive. But when you're trying to crew someone and they're being negative and they don't want to eat anything and they're like, "I feel sick," and you're trying everything and you can't really do anything, it's quite draining. I'm competitive, and I'm competitive with Scott because I want him to do well. And I've always kind of said to him, "I don't think you've reached your peak yet." And always kind of said, "I think you can push harder." But he always says, "Well, I'm trying my hardest, but I can't keep food down." And we tried loads of stuff. We tried switching to purely liquid food, tried to cycle out different gels, tried to just put him on solid food, and nothing would work. But it really impacted his mindset in a lot of the races, because even if he overcame the sickness in the first day, he in his mind mentally was like, "Well, I've lost time, I wasn't moving as efficiently, and I'm already calorie deficit." And I think that because he's doing more often than not 200s, that then compounds on him mentally, and as he gets more tired, you can definitely see a bit of a spiral. And I would say prior to him using Vespa, his mindset and his kind of energy level would be up and down. So his pace would be, he might go really fast for a section, then it would massively spike. The same with his mood. He might be really high at one aid station and you don't know what you're going to get the next. So very much like a Jekyll and Hyde, which as crew going into it. But a lot of the time when I'm crewing Scott, we're lucky enough that we have had friends that have kind of crewed with me. But a lot of the time I'm meeting someone for the first time and I'm trying to explain, "I think he might come in like this, but I have no idea." But I'm also trying to form a bond and understand different people's strengths when Scott's not there, so we can work really efficiently as a team when he comes in the aid station. So when you compound all that, it is quite a challenge to be crewing someone when they can't kind of keep a consistent level of pace or mentalness or fuel.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point.
Right.
Mindset piece.
It's the mindset, the attitude. it kind of like transfers into everybody there, right? But the reason I wanted to have Abby is, as tiring as crewing is for 200s, usually the crew's mentally there when the runner comes in, but like the runner a lot of times doesn't remember Jack when they're in that glucose dependent state, right? If you're fat adapted, I see this all the time, like with Jeff or with Peter or with Chad. They come in, they know what they want, they know, and you probably noticed that with Scott. He knew what he needed to do.
Yes.
And got you in.
He was he had more mental clarity, whereas prior to going on the Vespa, he'd come into the station and be like, "What you want?" He's like, "I don't know." And I'm like giving him options. He's like, "You're giving me too many options." Whereas now that he's been using it consistently, he's like, "Right, I need my food bag. Can you replenish my water? I want 2 salt caps." Like, it's more like it's not a Formula 1 pit stop, because obviously it's ultra running, but it's much more like that from a crew perspective. Whereas before, you were trying to problem solve because he didn't have the mental clarity to kind of give you any of the direction or answer any of your questions to try and be efficient in the aid station.
Definitely. I can agree more.
Yeah, no, and I remember this. This reminds me of early on. This was my pre-Vespa days, but I was into the fat adaptation at the time. I was pacing for my good friend Simon Machui from Tanzania one year at Western States, and it had gotten hot. And he'd allowed himself to get behind on his nutrition and hydration in the canyons. And even though he had water and he had gels, he started forgetting to take them. And he was just all over the map. And of course, I got him at Forest Hill and had to kind of spend a loop getting him on track because he was so out of it, right?
We had the same experience with Scott at Badwater. So me and our friend Chris, we're only a 2-man crew at this point. And the first section, you've got to get to 50 miles from a certain point. But very early on in that race, Scott got behind on his nutrition. He was good on his fluids, but he was behind on his nutrition because he couldn't eat in the heat. And we got to, what was it, Panamint Springs or further than that? Panamint Springs. And he was white. I remember Fezzi saying he's really white. And he's like, I feel sick. And we had to take a decent amount of time, probably 20, 30 minutes, just to try and cool him down, try and get him to get some calories in, which massively put him under pressure because he had to get to this aggressive time point at 50 miles because he'd started in the last wave. But because we'd taken time out and he wasn't moving as efficiently, it was right up against it whether or not he'd make it past the 50-mile mark, which was never in our plan based on his pacing and what we thought he would do. And I purely put that down to he was behind on his nutrition, and it really cost us in that race. It probably was a
combination of nutrition and electrolytes, because people can take the fluids, but if in that kind of situation, the amount of sodium you need, until you're aware of that, it's scary just how much sodium you'll go through.
And he's a sweaty, salty sweater is what Jeff calls it.
I'm a salty sweater for sure. So like I secrete like per litre of water. So 2 500 ml flasks, I'll lose 1200 mgs of sodium. Yeah. So I need to put all that back in. And to put that into context for Arizona Monster, like I was running with 2 800 ml flasks up front. So I was having to dump 1600 milligrams of sodium into one of my electrolyte bottles and then water on the other side. And then, tip Jeff Brown in top tip, but sip from one, sip from the other. That way you keep your balance and you can get your hydration right. And then you're in a really good spot with the fuel. And one thing, I think we chatted about it, Peter, briefly at one of the aid stations at the Arizona Monster, was that actually I really like being able to carry a Vespa or 2 or 3 with me on, depending on length of section, because at some point during that section, I'm going to crack open the Vespa. Stays relatively cool inside the pack as well, which is good. And it just feels like you're having another little drink of something that's not water. It's not electrolyte mix. And I really like it.
Yeah, I know. It's really great. So you guys have seen, you've both seen the shift that going to Vespa has, and you really haven't gone down the OFM rabbit hole.
No.
But
not yet.
Not fully yet. But
I
know I will soon with the help of you, Jeff, and Abby for sure. And I think one of the great things is that when I go out, and I pre-make all my bags. Again, Jeff's taught me how to do this. So pre-making my nutrition bags for every aid station, then putting in the Vespa, putting in the gels alongside it, putting in, some plantain chips to give me enough for each section. And one of the things that I've come to realize is that, I don't need to carry as much of anything else with me anymore, because I can go lighter and faster. And again, that's an added benefit.